Hey guys, it's Cindy. I had this idea to kind of demonstrate how I actually outline a course in Trello. You could do the same thing with index cards. I've talked about that before as well. And I thought I would, just kind of bring you along for the ride. So I'm going to tell you ahead of time, this video might turn out to be really long. There may be long stretches of silence because I'm literally brainstorming this as I go. So it may get really kind of boring in the middle. Feel free to skip ahead. But I want you to see kind of the process that I go through when I'm creating a new training. I think it will help you. If you're creating any kind of information product, I think it will help you to understand kind of how I pull this stuff together. So the course that I am outlining here is called Back to Basics Business Startup Systems. This course is designed for people who really don't know where to start. They know that they can make money online. They want to create a side hustle, but they don't have anything in place yet, and they don't even know where to start. So I've done some kind of initial brainstorming. I have a list on just a piece of notebook paper. I spent like 10 minutes just kind of listing down a bunch of different things that I think I should cover. So I'm going to start by organizing that into lists on Trello. So one of the first things that I think we need to talk about is choosing your business model, because there's lots of different ways you can go there. And we're going to come back to that in just a minute. You also need to identify your ideal customer. And you need to choose your topic or your interest point. So choose your, I don't know what I'm going to call this yet, but choose your interest or passion or profit center, something. You need to create your business assets. And again, these are just kind of broad topics. I'm going to come back and flesh these out in a little while. We need to talk about branding. We need to talk about exit strategy. We need to talk about marketing. So those are kind of the broad topics that I have, that I've envisioned here, and I'm going to come up with more as I go. So under business model, if we're talking about online business, there are several different business models that you can choose to work with. You can, you can create information products. That would be information products with a C, not a V. Maybe you're going to write a book. Maybe you're going to do affiliate marketing. Or maybe you're going to freelance or be a virtual assistant. Maybe you're going to have a content-based model where you earn from advertising, like think like BuzzFeed. I'm sure there are others. I'll come back and fill this out more as I think about them. You need to identify your ideal customer. There's several different ways you can do that. You can think about demographics, which is, age, race, religion, where they live. There's a lot of different demographics, APH, right? You can think about their pain points. Maybe you want to identify your ideal customer based on what they struggle with, that meets the need that you, or that is looking for the answer that you have. Maybe you want to look at psychographics, which is those non kind of quantifiable things. This would be their interests and their behavior. Maybe you want to look at, I'm going to call this one heart. Maybe you want to look at just people that you resonate with. So for an example of that would be, I know people who are passionate about helping young single mothers, for example. So maybe it's based on an audience that you just really have a heart for. Do we talk about interest? Maybe it's interest based. Maybe you want to talk to people who love knitting or who love quilting or who love photography, and those would all be interest based. Under choosing your passion or your interest or your profit center, there's a lot of different ways that you can decide what your topic is going to be. Those are some of them. You can base it on, is it something that you're super interested in? Maybe you're interested in learning about it. An example of that would be like my garden blog. I'm not a master gardener, but I'm certainly interested in learning about it. So that's one of the reasons why I chose that topic for that little side hustle business. Maybe it's something that you're passionate about. A lot of people talk about that. I don't believe you have to be absolutely passionate about something to build a business around it. Maybe you just think it's going to be profitable. Maybe you did some research and you think that topic is there's money to be made in that topic, and that's perfectly viable as well. Or maybe you have some skills in that area. So those are all ways that you would choose what topic your business is going to be based around, or what subject your business is going to be based around. You're going to need some business assets before you get going. So off the top of my head, you're going to need a website. You're going to need some social profiles, probably. You're going to need an email marketing system. You are going to need a professional email address. You're going to need some sort of documentation strategy. What about branding? You want to make sure that you have those assets in place. So you might want a logo. You might want visual content plan. You might want fonts and colors to choose. You might want to choose your fonts and colors. And I think branding is all going to be based on, who your ideal client is. So we're going to keep that in mind. Those two things are kind of linked. When I talk about exit strategy, you're going to want to make sure that you document your processes so you can remove yourself from the process as soon as possible by either outsourcing. Exit strategy doesn't necessarily mean you're going to sell your business, just that you want to be able to step away from it. So you want to be able to document your processes so you can hand those off to somebody else as soon as possible. You want to make sure that your business asset is not all wrapped up in your personal accounts. So an example of that would be to separate. So that would mean, like separating out your Google Analytics, or having, if you use Google Docs for your documentation, you don't want that to be in your personal Google Docs account, because it just makes separation of those assets later more difficult. You don't want to run your new business Instagram account through your personal Instagram account. You want to set up a separate one just so that it's easier to make that break later if necessary. Under marketing, we're going to have to think about how you're going to market a business. There's lots of different ways you can do that depending on what your business model is. Maybe you're going to go with word of mouth. Maybe you're going to use paid advertising. Maybe you're going to use content marketing. Maybe you're going to use video marketing. There's lots of options in here. So I have, just kind of this big brain dump of ideas. I also like to put another list here at the front, and I'm just going to call this one ideas. And what I do here is, if I've got something in here as I'm working through this list, through this outline, if you will, if I find something that just really doesn't fit any place, I might drop it in this ideas list, and maybe I'll come back to that later. If maybe it needs a whole list on its own, or a whole module, or a whole lesson on its own, or maybe it needs maybe it doesn't need to be there at all, or maybe it fits someplace that I didn't think it fit prior. All of that is kind of flexible as I'm going through and creating the course. I also like to include a list of assets for each lesson. So this list, depending on how much content is in each of these cards, for example, how much weight I feel I need to give each one of these, this list might either be a lesson or it might be a module. So an example would be, if this was going to be a lesson, choosing your business model, then I would have a video or an audio or a written resource that talks about all of these different ideas. Or I could make choosing your business model into a module that would host lessons about information products and a lesson about writing a book and a lesson about affiliate marketing as a business. I don't know yet how much information I'm going to have on each one of these or how deeply I want to dig into that. So for right now, like I said, I'm just kind of organizing this, and I will flesh it out later as I go. But this assets card, I'm going to put one of these in each of these lists, and this is where I'm going to list things like checklists that I want to include as I'm going through and I'm fleshing out the information. Maybe I want to have a decision matrix to help people decide which business model. So a series of questions, or maybe that needs to be, maybe it needs to be an assessment of sorts. Maybe I want a checklist. Maybe I don't want a checklist. Maybe I want it to be some kind of a worksheet. I feel like this needs a worksheet. How to work out the best business model for you. So those are just two ideas that I'm going to put in there. Then under assets on this card or on this list, maybe we want to talk about this is going to have some checklists. What else do we need in there? Maybe a worksheet. Oops. I don't know exactly what that worksheet's going to be about, but again, I feel like this needs a worksheet. And again, as I go through and I actually start fleshing this out and I start researching what needs to go into this course, then I'm going to be able to come back in here to these assets and say, well, you know what, this checklist, this checklist that I thought I needed, I probably don't need. I explained it in the lesson, but what I really need is this other thing. And I can rearrange that as I go. I also sometimes actually add this as a checklist. So as I'm deciding that, yes, I do need that, checklist on demographics versus psychographics, I can put that in here instead. I can put that in here instead, and then when I'm actually putting the course together, then I can check these off and I can see at a glance that I got everything included in that course that I wanted to make sure that I did include. I talked about knowing or understanding your branding based on who your ideal customer is. So this order can be changed as well. So maybe I don't want to wait until after creating your business assets to go over branding. I feel like branding needs to be way up here, because in a lot of ways it's based on who your ideal customer is, and you need to know about your branding before you go creating your business assets. You also probably need to know about your interests and passions before you choose your business model, or maybe after you choose your business model. I can go either way on that. I think I'm going to leave that one there. You could also, you could also even move this up ahead of this, because maybe you don't know what type of business you want to create until you know who your audience is. So I can rearrange those again as I go through this, and I start researching and I start fleshing this out. Then I will know more about how this all works. This is literally just my brain dump, all of my ideas out on the page so that I can see where I need to fill in more things, what's missing, what I really probably don't need to cover at all. And I will come back to this. So this is like the initial brain dump. Like I said, I will let this sit for a day or so, and I will come back to it, and I will inevitably see things that are missing and things that don't need to be here, and I will rearrange it that way as well. I'm also going to run it past my mastermind partners, see what they think. And certainly, if you have any ideas, I'm welcome. I'm open to hearing those as well. Anything that you think should be covered here, I'm certainly open to hearing that as well. But I thought this would just be a fun kind of little overview of how I use Trello to actually outline a product, a course, if you will, how I get started with that process. And I will come back in at the end after I have this course more fleshed out and more detailed, and I'll give you an updated video on what this looks like, or maybe I'll even share that Trello board with you. So I hope you found this helpful. Let me know if you have questions or ideas or any insight for me. I am all ears. I'll talk to you soon.